Welcome to my next Lost. Season 2 episode review video. Before I get into that, though, pretty important, if you aren't caught up to the point where I am at rewatching or watching Lost, or you're just not entirely sure, then you definitely need to take the initiative and pay attention to this episode's title, which of course I'll mention as well as put in the description. If that happens to be the case, you find that you're not caught up, it would be my recommendation that you don't watch this video any further to avoid any potential spoilers. And for those of you out there that are wondering, I've already seen Lost 3 times. The last couple times I've watched the show, I've binged it, and I want to let things resonate a bit. So I'm only watching like 1 to 3 episodes per week. Every once in a while I watch like 4 or 5, but it's 1 to 3 typically. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. Top 5 for sure. I'm not the only one that's watching Lost, though. The legendary Crazy Coffeeman, who you see in my comment section for Dexter, Breaking Bad, Lucifer, and Lost content, is actually watching Lost for the first time. It might even become one of his top favorite shows of all time, like top 5 for him. Who knows? But join us on the journey and let's discuss this awesome and amazing show. No spoilers, however, past this episode. So with all that said, this will be Lost, Season 2, Episode 18. The title of this episode is called Dave. And this will be my review, reaction, recap after just finishing watching the episode. So we start the episode off at the beach where Hurley is trying to catch up with Libby's walking pace, who has taken it upon herself the task of getting Hurley into shape. Hurley, however, is frustrated at his failing efforts and rejects Libby's comforting words and then asserts that he is sick. Libby asks him to confide in her, so Hurley comes clean and confesses his food problem. He takes Libby to the jungle where he reveals a stash into which he has been hoarding food from the swan. He expresses his wishes to get rid of it, but apparently he was unable to do so thus far. Libby advises him that change comes by action, and as an encouragement, she holds out to him a jar of ranch salad dressing. In a brave move, Hurley actually opens the jar and dumps it on the ground, then proceeds to destroy the rest of his supply while Libby laughs and encourages him. Hurley and Libby then share an intimate moment before they are interrupted by Jin, Sun, and the others running from the beach to look for something in the jungle. Hurley follows them only to be shocked by tons of food boxes from the recent supply drop labeled Dharma, much larger than what he had just wasted. Soon the survivors start fighting for food shares before suggesting that Hurley should be in charge of the food. And Hurley, he's had enough of this. He panics at the suggestion and then sees a man in a bathrobe walking away, whom he promptly follows. While searching, Hurley falls on what he discovers to be Dave's slipper. Libby soon catches up with Hurley and praises his strong head for not freaking out at the new food temptation. Hurley, on the other hand, is busy trying to hide Dave's slipper. And then we have our flashback. Hurley's doctor at Santa Rosa Mental Health Institute, Dr. Brooks, who's played by Bruce Davidson, checks on his eating habits. When Brooks mentions his mom, Hurley says he is not mad at her anymore for signing him in. Brooks also reveals that Hurley has been there for almost 2 months and says it is time they start to get their hands dirty. They start with discussing Hurley's homework of making a list of things he likes about himself and end arguing about another patient, Dave, whom Brooks thinks is a bad influence on Hurley for encouraging him to not take the task. Hurley, however, rejects his opinion and declares Dave as the most normal person around. Next, at a basketball game in the hospital, Dave tries to get the ball but is continuously unsuccessful. Hurley arrives and talks about his meeting, but Dave distracts him with thoughts of food and taco night. Locke, back to the island, of course. Locke recovers from the incident with the blast doors with the help of Jack and Kate, and then Locke comments on the controversy of Henry not using the chance he had during the lockdown to escape, thinking that it was to help him. Jack, however, rejects that and says it was only because he thought his balloon story would check out. The situation with the prisoner heats up. Saeed and Ana Lucia recount to on Henry that they indeed found his balloon, but when they dug up the gravesite of his supposed wife, Jennifer Gale, they discovered a male body, the real Henry Gale, as identified by the contents of his wallet. Inside the wallet has a driver's license featuring the real Henry Gale, who is African American, and a $20 bill with a inscription that indicates he did not die in his balloon crash. Henry at first started to claim he was part of a rescue party and that he found the real Henry Gale already dead. Thus, they reveal, in spite of the right details, he mentioned Henry had been lying all along. Reluctantly, the fake Henry finally admits that he is indeed an other, but he would be killed if he talks. Also, he makes a comment on the guy with the beard, whom he says is of no important position to... No, he's not important. He's not important at all compared to him, the fake Henry. When Henry says he cannot tell them anything about the others, Saeed threatens Henry at gunpoint. Henry insists he cannot talk, and Saeed loads the gun and then counts to 3. And then Henry cries that Saeed can't kill him because he is not a bad person, but Saeed pulls the trigger. Ana Lucia, however, intervenes just in time by grabbing Saeed's gun arm, causing the shot to strike the wall, thereby saving Henry's life. Locke shouts, "Jack!" as he is not in the loop and wants to know what is going on, and Jack replies that he's got it covered. Echo is sawing wood to build a church. Charlie approaches him and asks what he is doing, but Echo enlists his help in the moving the wood without revealing the actual reason. And then Hurley stumbles on a Dharma box of fish crackers on his search for Dave, which he is soon unable to resist opening. While eating, Dave appears to him again and throws coconuts at him after Hurley denounces his existence. Hurley runs towards Dave, escaping, and he quickly arrives at the beach where he stops at Echo's construction with Charlie. Then back at the mental hospital, Hurley has been beaten at Connect 4 game by Leonard Sims, who he mocks with Dave for continuously repeating the numbers 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42, 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. Hurley then proceeds to eat his diet celery, but Dave declares him to take one of Leonard's grain crackers, which Hurley eventually does. Nurse Lazenby then comes by with his medication, clozapam, which Dave advises him not to swallow. Dr. Brooks arrives and talks to Dave and Hurley before taking a picture of them. After he leaves, Hurley shows Dave the pills kept in his mouth. Hurley heads to Sawyer to ask him for clozapam. Sawyer asks why, and Hurley answers because he sees a bald guy in a bathrobe. Sawyer then mocks Hurley and hints that he is going nuts, which causes Hurley's temper to heat, and soon after he attacks him. He says all the nicknames Sawyer has called him. Other people on the beach watch, including Sun, who encourages a highly amused Jin to go help break it up, which he does. After a quick fight, Sawyer calls Hurley crazy, which Hurley strongly denies. Kate gives Sawyer a hard time about Hurley getting the best of him, and I put Katie for some reason and not Kate. Luckily, I caught myself, but it happens when I take notes. There's so much stuff going on. And then Hurley gathers all his stuff and decides to go live at the caves, where now no one is living at anymore, refusing Libby's attempt to talk him out of it. On his way, a jar of peanut butter falls open from his bag, which he stops to eat as he licks some off of a rock using the leaf, and then Dave appears again. And then back to our flashback, Hurley reads his list of good points to Dr. Brooks. When Brooks mentions that he did not write about the way he looks, Hurley starts to talk about the accident. Apparently he walked onto a deck and it collapsed soon after, with 2 people killed, leading Hurley to think his weight caused it. Brooks, however, says that it wasn't his fault since there were already 23 people on it. while it was built to hold 8. He also reveals that after the accident, Hurley was in a catatonic state in which he stopped talking, going out, and even sleeping. However, he never stopped eating, which was the way he chose to punish himself. Enraged, Hurley says that his friend Dave was right about Brooks being a quack, to which Brooks shows him the picture he had taken earlier. To Hurley's surprise, Dave does not appear in the picture, since Dave, as Brooks reveals, is a figment of Hurley's imagination. Later that night, Dave wakes Hurley up to escape with him from the Institute. Hurley confronts Dave and declares that he isn't real and refuses to follow him. And then Hurley locks Dave outside the Institute and goes back to bed. Dave convinces Hurley that he is actually still in Santa Rosa Mental Health Institute. We're back on the island now, but in a coma. He tells him that everything that happened from the moment Hurley locked him out of the Institute, the lottery, the crash, and Libby, were only in his head. Dave then leads him to the top of a massive cliff that falls at a steep angle down to the ocean and tries to convince him to jump off. He then assures him that after he jumps, he will wake back up into his old life. To convince him even further, Dave says, "See you in another life, brother," and then jumps off first. So now Dave is copying Desmond's catchphrase, "See you in another life, brother." Or I think that's what maybe he altered that a bit, but it was something like "See you in another life." I put the note down, and I don't think that's exactly what he said. I can't remember now. And then Locke finally confronts the prisoner, Henry Gale, demanding to know why he let himself be caught, thinking it might have been to locate the Swan. Henry, however, calls the Swan a joke. He also states that even God is unable to see the island. When Locke asks him to elaborate, Henry says that after he crawled through the vents and reached the computer room, he never did push the button. He says he simply stood there and watched the timer's numbers turn red to hieroglyphics before they reset back to 108 on their own. Locke, however, replies angry that he is lying. Henry says that he's done lying. And then we have a traumatized Hurley is watching as Dave falls, when all of a sudden Libby emerges from the jungle asking what is wrong, and Hurley states that to her that all this has happened is not real, and that is only a comatose dream, including herself. He is rational, is that in the real world, no good-looking girl like Libby would ever like him. Libby replies that he is regressing and refuses his claims, noting that her dreadful experience with the tail section survivors, most of whom he didn't meet, must be real. So that's her reality, not Hurley's. Hurley, however, is about to jump off the cliff when Libby tells him that she likes him. As she then moves towards Hurley, and the two share a passionate and tender kiss, and she says that was real. Finally, Hurley comes back to his senses, and the new couple heads back to camp. So they're a couple just that quickly. Interesting. And then in the episode's last flashback, returning to the scene where the Polaroid picture was taken, the camera actually pans to show an apparently sick Libby at another table, watching Hurley pose for the picture with no one next to him before accepting her medication from a nurse. Thus, through Libby's point of view of the scene, we confirm that the imaginary Dave is indeed imaginary, and that's what ends this episode of Lost. So, okay episode, not as good as the last one in my opinion. I'll score it 8.5 out of 10. Characters of the episode, we have to go with Hurley, obviously. We have to go with Libby, and then maybe even Dave. Brooks was okay, but not a lot of time in the episode, and then other characters kind of took a back seat. Henry Gale was actually important too, so good stuff though. So you've heard everything that I have to say. Now it's your turn. If you're a fan of Lost and you want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, please make sure that you Hulk smash the like button, share the video with a friend, put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section and talk to me and the legendary Crazy Coffin Man about what your thoughts are on this episode of Lost. What would you rate the episode, and what would you, or I should say, who would you put as characters of the episode? And then last, but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. You're watching the video anyway. Subscribe to the channel, join the team, show your damn support, and be a part of something special. And you never know what you're going to see on JDev TV.